Hello everyone. I thought I would film another video. I just ended the video of my New Year's resolutions, and I actually saw another great video idea over at Lisa Novell's channel, which is called What I Learned in 2019. And I think it was a super interesting year with lots of experiences and emotions, so I also thought it was a super idea to film a video of the things I've learned in 2019 and share them with you. So the first thing that I've learned in 2019 is that knowledge is power, or knowledge is an asset, and you can never have enough of it. I think we live in a quite superficial world nowadays, so I really found that it's so valuable to get your hands on whatever information you can get your hands on. So this really includes reading a lot, and because those are really, knowledge is really the fuel for discussion, and it's really the fuel for opinion formation, and it really opens up our worldview. And it's really helping in opinion formation. So I think knowledge is so powerful nowadays, or in general, and we can never have, and we never should have enough of it. So I think that's really something that I realized even more this past year. Another thing that I've learned in 2019 is that in the end, you only have yourself. So that also means that because you only have yourself, you should also love yourself to the fullest and care for yourself as much as possible. I think this is really a realization that came to me once again after I broke up with my boyfriend in the middle of this year, and where I felt like left alone again. So I just realized anyway again that you never should make yourself dependent on any other but yourself. That you should instead really invest the time and energy in working on yourself. Another thing that I've realized or learned this year is that be kind to yourself and others. For people that doesn't know this, I really used to be a super self-critical person, and I always used to be very hard on myself, much more than I was on other people. So I used to judge myself a lot, and I used to beat up myself for things a lot. I always tried to be really perfectionist and had really high standards for myself. And what I kind of learned is that there's really nothing good about that. And instead, you should really be kind to yourself, and you should really work on caring for yourself. And don't beat yourself up for things. We all make mistakes, so just be kind to yourself. Another thing that I've learned in 2019 is that you cannot change the past. You cannot change things that are already happened. Like, obviously I already knew those things before, but somehow this year I came even more to that realization, because sometimes in the past, for example, when I overslept by accident, I woke up feeling super stressed and super annoyed by myself. But this year, when like little things happened that already happened, that I couldn't change anyway, I was like, so what? They already happened. I don't have power to change them anymore. So rather than being upset about them, you just should accept them and take them the best way you can. Another thing that I've learned this past year, something that I think is really important, is don't take everything so serious in life. Take everything with a grain of salt and a grain of fun, because we only have that one life, and there's no reason why you should take everything so serious and be so stressed about the small things. And some points this year, I really just just paused for a second. For example, when I felt stressed or overwhelmed by schoolwork or by exams, I just halted for a moment and thought like I'm stressed about school or exams, but in the end, we're only such a small part of this world. Like, the universe literally doesn't even care that we exist. So we shouldn't take and blow up our little problems to a huge thing, because in the end, they're just so banal and naive. And so we really shouldn't take everything so hard in life. Life is so much easier if we don't take it too serious. If we take everything with a bit with ease, we will have naturally more fun. Another thing that I've learned is ignorant people may not be willingly ignorant, but ignorance is just a consequence of a lack of knowledge. I think, especially since I'm kind of living in that eco bubble life that Instagram kind of imposes on me, I sometimes experience other opinions of people, and they come across as quite ignorant to me, and rather than being upset about it, I kind of came to the realization that a lot of people are just misinformed, and they're not ignorant because they want to be mean or anything, but just because they have a lack of knowledge. So that's really why my aim is to educate people and to create awareness. By this, I don't want to sound overly confident or anything. I don't want to put myself superior to those people, not at all. I just want to say that we should be really careful with whom we judge, because ignorant people are not necessarily just being ignorant. They maybe just come across ignorant because they don't have the knowledge that you have. Another thing that I realized this year, once again, is that you're only young once. So once you're still young, you're still flexible and have the energy to do crazy things and try out new things. So you also should rather just use that time and try out new things. While you're still young and not really bound by any responsibilities such as family or kids or anything, or like a fixed or permanent job, you really should use or see it as an opportunity to explore new things and try out new things that you might like. I think it's super important to remember that being young is really also the time that you have for self-exploration, where you can invent yourself and try out the things that you like and discover new versions of yourself. So by that being said, I also just want to encourage you to also don't be too serious. Also maybe just do crazy things sometimes, things that maybe in the end you regret afterwards, but you still realize that they were fun. Those are really the things that stick with you, that are make for good memories, that you will even maybe end up telling your grandchildren. Who knows? Another important realization was that if you cannot be yourself in a relationship, it's not right. I feel like in the past relationship that I was, or the past two ones, that I had to alter myself a little bit in order to adapt myself to the other person, and sometimes I felt a bit constrained by who I really could be. Especially, for example, my ex-boyfriend didn't really accept the fact that I was as active on social media. He used to judge me a lot by it, and he also just had this image of a classic influencer, and he thought that it was a superficial world, and by that he kind of ignored the fact that there's so much more behind it, and this is really an important part of my life. It's really something that makes me happy, that gives me energy, that I create with passion. And I felt like I even was a bit, like sometimes a bit scared to ask him for a photo, for example. Or I really felt a little bit judged by being who I am. So I feel like I couldn't be truly myself in that relationship. And I only realized that really afterwards. And I think it's so important to just know that if you cannot be who you really are in a relationship, then it's not meant to be. Then it's really not a healthy relationship, and you should get out of it. Another thing that's connected with relationship is if he doesn't appreciate and see the value in you, then he just doesn't deserve you. This goes hand in hand with the thing that I just said earlier. I think I spent too much time already in relationships or in connections with partners where the other person just took my time for granted and took me for granted. And I really don't want to dedicate time or spend time with people or guys anymore that don't appreciate my time and my presence. So I think it's super important that the second someone takes you for granted and doesn't invest in your relationship anymore, it's really a time where you should reconsider things and find time to talk. And if after that, after you worked on it, he still doesn't appreciate you for who you are, and he doesn't appreciate your time, I think he just doesn't deserve you. Because I think your time is too valuable to spend time with people who don't appreciate your presence. So that's another thing that I've learned. Then another thing that I've learned is do things imperfectly, as long as you do them with passion. I experienced a lot that I used to be scared of doing or trying new things because I was always scared that I couldn't do them as perfectly or that I couldn't live up to my high standards. But what I really realized this year is that as long as you do things with passion and with your full heart, this really gets noticed in your work that you put out, and people will appreciate it way more rather than if it's just perfect but without any emotions. So just as an example, for example, I used to be really picky on the photos that I put up on my blog or on Instagram, and I was basically never really satisfied with them. And what I realized though, that there's just always people that will be better at editing or better at the lighting or the composition of the photo. But I just thought or realized that it doesn't matter and I should stop worrying too much about being perfect, because I rather want to put out imperfect content that maybe doesn't look as perfect as other people's content. But as long as I put the passion and love in this creation, I think people will see that and people will appreciate it. And I think that basically goes for anything that you create. There is no reason why you should be perfect in things. And I think perfect is boring because then there's not really no room for improvement. So you really should see everything as a process, and you can really see how you improve over time. But as long as you do anything with passion, or as long as you enjoy doing something, you really should do them. It doesn't matter if they're not perfect. So if in case you really like singing or dancing, just sing or dance. It doesn't have to look perfect. No one cares. But as long as you do it with passion, that's the most important thing. Another thing that really is closely connected to this is that no one is perfect at something at the first time. Me included, I used to think that when I saw someone, for example, drawing really good, or I saw a photographer doing amazing photos, like we always tend to think that people were born that way and they were born with that natural talent. And if to some extent, yes, there may be a natural inclination towards talent, we also have to recognize the fact that there's like so much hours of work that goes behind that talent. And people are mostly not born a star overnight. They don't become a talent at something the first second they try something, but they put in a lot of effort, and effort that a lot of time people don't really see that they put in. So as long as you are determined to work on something, and if you're determined to become better at something, and you actually dedicate the time to improve and if you dedicate to find the time to acquire knowledge in that area, as long as you do that, you will see that you will naturally improve in that area and that you will become better over time. Another thing that I learned in 2019 is that I really don't want to do any more people pleasing. I think that a lot of times I always wanted to please everyone with whatever I did. I want to make everyone happy, and I didn't wanna, I wanted to give myself as a perfect version. And I think I really realized this year that I no longer want to be the people pleaser. Like, of course, I still want to be accepted and loved by people around me, but fact is that you cannot please everyone, and there's just so many different expectations coming at you from different sides that it's basically impossible to please everyone. And in the end, it will only really put a lot of stress and pressure on you if you try to please everyone, and you will automatically try to adapt and adjust yourself in order to please other people. So I think that's really not worth it. Another thing that I realized this year is that positive thoughts are really powerful. I always kind of used to laugh a bit about that comment. I always thought like, well, positive thoughts cannot really bring about positive actions. But this year, even more, I kind of started to realize that whenever I try to see things positively, that I would actually naturally attract positive things that were happening. And I really kind of believe in self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you have a positive mindset, you will automatically do things in a different way. You will go about it with the mindset that you will be successful, and because you have that mindset, you will be more likely to actually succeed in the things you do. So I think I really realized that positive thoughts are so powerful and so important, and that should never be underestimated. Another thing that I realized is that good friendships are meant to stay. I feel like I have a lot of friends that I only see every now and then, sometimes even only once a year. But something that I've realized or learned this year is that if it's a good friendships, it's really meant to last. It doesn't matter how often you see each other, but every time you see each other again, it will be as nothing has changed, and you will still be the good friends you used to be. So this, I think, is really a nice thing to realize, and something that I've realized this past year. Another important thing that I've learned this year is it's so important to listen to your body and to your mind. This goes kind of with the hand in hand with the FOMO, the fear of missing out. A lot of times in the past, when I didn't really felt emotionally nor physically ready, for example, to go out or go to specific events, I still kind of forced myself to go because I was afraid to miss out of something, or I was afraid to disappoint someone. But something that I've realized is that it's so much more important to listen to your body and to accept and to respect your own needs. With that being said, if you don't feel like going to that party, if you're too tired, just listen to your body, because your body and your mind tell you the things that are right for you. I think it's so important that we just listen more often to our own bodily and mental signals, and that we take them serious, because your body and your mind always know what's best for you, or most of the time, I want to say, because this obviously doesn't go for everyone and everything, but generally speaking, don't feel bad to not go out or not do certain things, because in the end, you have to feel good about them. Last but not least, a thing that I've realized is that you cannot change anyone but yourself. So you cannot expect other people to change in behavior or in attitude, because in the end, you only can change and work on yourself. I think a lot of people always have the expectation that they have the possibility to modify other people, to change them, but that's really not possible. Maybe to some degree we're able to influence other people, but in the end it's really up to them to change. So I think that's really another important realization that came to me, especially in view of my past relationship, because I thought that I would be able to change the other person to be more the way I wanted them to be. But in the end, that's really nonsense, because you cannot change other people. And I think it's really important that I realized that even more this past year. So this is basically the video about the things I've learned in 2019. I hope you enjoyed watching my video, and I wish you all a great start to the new year. Bye.